If exposure to the full moon's light suddenly began transforming everyone into murderous werewolves, would you board the buses heading to yet another safe zone? Or would you build the ultimate werewolf-proof bunker to make your last stand in? Nobody knows how or why the mutations began. What they do know is that without their patent-pending moon screen, the transformations will continue, and billions will be slaughtered with each supermoon. Now, with the apocalypse on his doorstep, Wesley hunkers down in his late brother's house to survive the night. His plan? Electrified fences, capsaicin sprinklers, and a shotgun with barely enough shells. But with over 150 werewolves prowling around his neighborhood, and his defense is looking more Home Alone than Fort Knox, Wesley's odds of seeing sunrise are looking bleak. In this How to Beat video, we'll follow Wesley, a reluctant hero with a questionable survival plan, as he prepares for the supermoon apocalypse. We'll break down his mistakes, make better choices, and ultimately beat the supermoon in werewolves. Dr. Aranda, the lead researcher leading efforts to counter the supermoon threat, addresses the public with an urgent warning. 1 year ago, a supermoon triggered an apocalypse. Over 1 billion people were violently transformed into werewolves, unleashing pure carnage on the remaining 7 billion humans for that night. He explains that the supermoons occur when the full moon comes within 223,000 miles of Earth, an event that can happen up to 4 times a year. But last year's supermoon wasn't like the others, clearly, and tonight, the supermoon is back. Dr. Aranda's advice? No one should be exposed to moonlight tonight. Have a plan and stick to it. Which brings us to Wesley Marshall, finishing his last-minute doomsday preparations to fortify his dead brother's wife's house against the big bad.
And we're gonna need a montage. Ooh, it takes a montage.
Seriously, you had 3 months to get this done, bro. How are you just now getting to this? Anyway, long story short, the werewolves killed his brother, and now Wesley's determined to save what little family he has left. Let's take a look at his setup. Tall metal fencing electrified with a generator, topped with concertina wire, and rigged with a capsaicin pepper spray sprinkler system. A couple bear traps on the front lawn, windows boarded up with whatever wood scraps he could find, nail-spiked boards thrown up on the roof, a surveillance system feeding into a living room command station. And for the grand finale, a shotgun in the pantry with maybe half a box of shells left. Did Kevin McAllister help you draw this battle plan out with crayons and stickers? Werewolves are coming, not the wet bandits. I'm gonna give this defense a generous 2 out of 10. 1 point for the surveillance system, which at least gives him a fighting chance to see where the attacks are coming from and how many attackers there are. As well as a point for the shotgun, because realistically, a double-aught buck headshot or 2 will drop a werewolf. But without a proper choke point, barely any ammo, and in the hands of Lucy, means its effectiveness is going to be limited and short-lived. Everything else, completely useless. His DIY traps and barricades will be so ineffective at slowing or stopping a werewolf that he might as well have saved himself the sweat and skipped building them altogether. Nerds, can I interest you in a cup of tea? Don't worry, it's just tea. I would never put anything dangerous in it like ricin or potassium cyanide. Otherwise, you might miss out on the latest global event from Raid Shadow Legends. For a limited time only, Raid invites you to crawl down the rabbit hole and join millions of other players on Alice's adventure. This global event gives players a chance to unlock a whole host of new champions, including Alice the Wanderer, Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, Knave of Hearts, and even the belligerent bundle of blind fury that is the Queen of Hearts herself. Want to play the hero? Well, from now until March 26th, you can unlock legendary champion Alice the Wanderer, as well as a 2-star perfect soul for her, and a whole bunch of other awesome stuff just by opening the game on 14 different days. And if you're in the mood for something a bit more unpredictable, you could bag yourself a legendary Mad Hatter by racking up resources and special events and tournaments. Just be sure to watch the clock on that one. The Hatter might be stuck in in time, but you've only got until January 23rd to put him on your roster. Of course, the real challenge takes place in the event dungeon, where you and your champions have until March 5th to dethrone the Queen of Hearts and reap huge rewards like this exclusive pinpoint gear set. Right now, Raid is offering Nerd Explains viewers like you $60 worth of in-game add-ons for the low price of absolutely nothing. We're talking Epic Champion Vergis, 200k silver, an energy refill, XP booster, and an epic skill tome the second you sign up. And then, once you hit level 25, you'll get a second epic champ, Rector Drath, along with yet another round of upgrades, all without ever spending a dime. Plus, new players can even get the supernatural Sun Wukong by using promo code Monkey King after signing up. Raid is free to download on Android, iOS, PC, and Mac, and with constant monthly updates and an ever-expanding list of characters to choose from, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. If all that sounds good to you, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description. Thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. What Wesley's failing to understand and plan around is that werewolves are in fact werewolves. They aren't bears, they aren't wolves, they're werewolves. 7 to 9 feet tall, weighing 400 to 600 pounds of pure muscle, bone, and claws. They have excellent night vision due to a reflective layer in their eyes called tapetum lucidum, which amplifies dim light. Their sense of smell is 100 times sharper than ours, enabling them to track a scent trail from up to 2 miles away, even ones that are 3 to 5 days old. They can hear a human conversation in a quiet neighborhood from half a mile away. They're intelligent enough to test defenses like fences or traps, find weak spots, and deduce likely hiding spots or escape routes. They're socially intelligent enough to communicate all of this to the pack and strategically drive prey toward predetermined ambush zones. And the worst part? There's a lot of them, as anyone exposed to even just a few seconds of moonlight will turn. Dr. Aranda estimated that during the last supermoon, about 1 in 8 people were exposed and turned into werewolves. Obviously, this time more people will be prepared, but at the same time, more people will let curiosity get the better of them. If even half that rate, 1 in 16, ends up exposed to super moonlight, there could be 150 werewolves in a single square mile of suburban Florida, which is where Wesley lives. With that in mind, here's how Wesley's defense is going to play out tonight. Roughly 150 people will turn into werewolves within a square mile of him. They would likely split into smaller local hunting packs of 5 to 10, covering the surrounding streets and blocks. But don't think that that means Wesley will only face one group. The pack a couple streets over could easily join the party the second they hear noise or catch a scent. But let's focus on the group of 5 to 10 for now. The pack of werewolves will start hunting house to house, breaking in and slaughtering whoever they find. Eventually, they'll get to Wesley's house, and it won't take long to prioritize it. Not only is his scent fresh all over it, but even to a werewolf, those hobo shack fortifications scream that there's little piggies hiding inside. Might as well hang up a Krispy Kreme hot light. They'll get zapped by the electric fence, maybe take a hit of pepper spray. Neither will do more than enrage them. Then they'll climb a nearby tree to jump over the fence, or just hurl an AC unit straight through it. Once they breach the fence, they will skulk right past those lazily placed bear traps because they have night vision, and thus can see them clear as day. Even if a werewolf steps on a bear trap, the rest will immediately recognize the danger and avoid the others. The trapped werewolf will only be slowed down momentarily, with superhuman strength comparable to or exceeding that of a bear, which is capable of flipping 1,000-pound objects. It could rip the trap apart. Bear traps are designed to immobilize through hundreds of pounds of clamping force, which works on bears because they lack the intelligence or dexterity to escape it. Werewolves, however, combine this strength with human-like agility and problem solving. They can grip, twist, and apply enough leverage to pry the jaws open. Then, they'll surround the house. Some will climb up onto the roof, completely unfazed by a few pokey nails. Others will tear through the wood-boarded windows with their claws or bulldoze goes through the shoddy, unsupported brick walls. None of it will stop them. They're simply too yoked. Inside, a completely demoralized Wesley, Lucy, and little Emma will watch in paralyzing horror as the cameras broadcast their impending doom. The feeds might give them a vague idea of where the wolves are coming from. Not that it's hard to figure out from all the relentless pounding that their house is taking on all sides, but it won't matter. The wolves are everywhere, and there's no escape. With no choke points and a single shotgun with only a handful of shells, they will quickly be surrounded by 5 to 10 berserking werewolves. Maybe he can clap 1 or 2 before they're all overrun, but ultimately, the last of the Marshall bloodline will be viciously butchered. And to think, this brutal end could have been entirely avoided. If I were Wesley, here is exactly what I would do. Forget everything that Wesley had planned. None of it's gonna work. Our first line of defense is simply staying hidden. We don't want to be seen, smelled, or heard by werewolves, nor survivors who see our shelter and want in, thus drawing werewolves to us. We don't want anything outside that gives the impression that fresh meat is inside. No tall metal fencing being electrified by a loud generator, no bear traps, no spiky nail boards on the roof, no pepper spray sprinklers, no wood boarding on the windows, nothing. As far as the camera setup, there's plenty of options for well-hidden surveillance perimeter cameras that blend in with trees and bushes and debris. I would use those instead of hanging up an entire CCTV network out in the open. Inside is where our primary defensive fortification will be, a spherical 6-inch thick reinforced concrete bunker, constructed with ultra-high-performance concrete, high-density radial and circumferential rebar patterns using high-strength grade 100 rebar, crack-resistant additives, steel fiber, shear plates, and hard particle surface coatings. Our bunker will be rated for 20,000 psi compressive strength, 7,500 psi shear strength, 100,000 psi tensile strength, 150 joules per square centimeter of impact energy, 9 on the Mohs hardness scale, and a spherical shape to distribute impact forces. For comparison, a 400 to 600 pound werewolf ramming or leaping into the bunker at 20 to 30 miles per hour generates 500 to 1500 psi in localized compressive force. A werewolf clawing or raking with its full strength might exert 500 to 2000 psi of shear force on a small area. A werewolf prying or pulling at the bunker could generate 2000 to 5000 psi of tensile forces. Werewolves' hardened bone claws are likely around 6 to 7 on the Mohs hardness scale. So basically, our bunker is mathematically engineered to be completely impenetrable against a full-scale attack from a large werewolf pack for 12 hours straight.
Yes, science!
Since Wesley lives in Florida where nobody has a basement, this bunker will be above ground. We'll build the bunker at the end of the main hallway towards the back of the house. For entering and exiting, the bunker will have 2 hollow L-shaped protrusions that are only wide and tall enough for a human to crawl in and out of. This mitigates having any structural vulnerabilities that something like a big door would present. 1 entrance in the front, and a back exit that opens up to that window at the back of the hallway, ensuring an escape route in the event of a fire or flood, or just if the front entrance is blocked by piles of dead werewolves, which it will be. That's right, we're not drinking wine and eating cheese. We're not napping or lying down crying in the fetal position. We're gonna be killing. I'm not about to sit around while they scratch up my bunker's expensive ceramic coating. While werewolves will likely attack from all sides, the bulk of the pack entering from the front 3/4 of the house will naturally converge into this hallway while hunting and tracking us. This hallway will be our kill zone. We'll place a gun port in the front of the bunker covering that hallway. For the design, the slit port will be 5 inches tall and 15 inches wide. It'll be a recessed pyramid design that only opens up to 3 inches on the gun side, which will block any of the werewolves' attempts to reach in and claw at us. It'll be lined with a steel plate and use a sliding ballistic panel that can be opened for killing and shut to hunker down.
Now you killing. Close it up. No, you ain't.
The front entrance will open up right to the side of the gun port, enabling us to shred anything trying to get in. The back exit will open up to that window at the back of the hallway. We'll also place a gun port back there to ensure the exit's clear. These entrances will be secured with a heavy-duty metal grate that'll be deadbolted from the inside. The kill zone hallway, which leads to the bunker's front entrance, will funnel werewolves into our field of fire. In order to prevent them from bashing out the side of the hallway to escape our gunfire, we'll reinforce the hallway with 6 to 8 inch precast tongue and groove interlocking concrete panels, anchored to the floor, ceiling, and studs using heavy-duty steel brackets and bolts. It's nowhere near the strength of our bunker, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to hold them in place for a few seconds while we fill them full of holes and lead. The kill zone hallway will also be lined with 4,000 watts of UVC floodlights, 1,800 watts of UVA and UVB lamps, and 900 watts of infrared heat lamps, all powered by a 7,000 watt generator such as the Honda EU 7000IS. We'll activate these lights as soon as the werewolves enter the kill zone. While our sunlight flood lamps may not be powerful enough to totally revert the werewolves back to human form, they will cause rapid burns and significant discomfort, blind them, and induce partial reversion, leaving them more vulnerable to our small arms fire. And hey, if it does fully revert them back to human form, they'll be significantly easier to kill. But nerd, if they're humans, why would you kill them? You can't do that, it's murder. If the reverted werewolf turns out to be a little girl, I might feel generous enough to have Lucy open the metal grate and let her in. But if it's a group of grown men, they are far too risky, either to secure inside the bunker or to let go unsupervised. They could turn back into werewolves, burn the house down, or regroup for another attack. We don't know why that they turned. It could have been an accident, or it could have been on purpose. In that case, the safest option is to ensure that they don't leave the kill zone at all. Wrong place, wrong time, souls. What a natural fitting segue to our firepower section. Our main weapons will be a semi-auto 308 AR-10, loaded with Buffalo Barnes 308 Winchester Supercharged 150 grain TTSX, a semi-auto tube-fed 12-gauge shotgun like the 940 Pro or Benelli 1301, with tube extensions for a 9+1 capacity, loaded with Brennecke Black Magic Magnum or Magnum Crush slugs, a backup bolt-action rifle chambered in 308 Winchester as well, and for extremely close-quarters personal defense, a 10mm Glock 40 loaded with 220 grain flat-nosed hardcast ammo, with standard 15-round mags. No extendos for the glizzy, unfortunately. They're just not reliable enough. All these calibers and round types are engineered to kill the largest, toughest game on Earth. And now, that includes werewolves. They're built to punch deep through thick muscle and dense bone, dumping devastating amounts of energy straight into their vital organs and exploding their soft giblets. Unlike Wesley, we'll want to stockpile enough ammo to keep our guns fed while engaging upwards of 50 werewolves all night long. If we generously estimate that a werewolf could maybe eat 10 308s, or 5 12-gauge shotgun slugs, or 15 10mm rounds, then we'll need at least 1,000 rounds of 308, 500 rounds of 12-gauge, and 200 rounds of 10mm. Obviously, the Buffalo Barnes and Brenneckes will get expensive, and I don't think we need 1,000 rounds of specialty ammo, even just a first handful of mags and shells at least. The rest can be cheaper bonded soft points and Federal Power Shock slugs. While we're blasting, we'll definitely need Emma and Lucy to be reloading magazines and the shotgun while we rotate between firing the AR and the shotgun. We should fix Surefire Turbo Series high candela lights onto our weapons, adding another blinding frontal light for the kill zone. One thing's for sure, it is gonna be loud as hell.
You alright?
What?
So, if we can get our hands on some suppressors for the rifle and shotgun, like the salvo, that would be cool. But we should be okay relying on in- and over-ear electronic ear pro. Not only will this prevent us from immediately becoming deaf, but also will help us communicate with each other during the chaos. The generator and all the gunfire is going to be spitting out a lot of fumes. So for ventilation, we'll use a 2-tube ventilation system with an intake and exhaust tube to ensure proper airflow and manage the gunfire fumes. The exhaust tube will be equipped with an inline fan rated at 200 cubic feet per minute to vent the gunfire and generator fumes. Both tubes will be 6 inches in diameter and extend up to the roof. They'll be fitted with metal grates to block debris and werewolves, and rain hoods to prevent water from getting in. All this talk of bunkers and firepower's getting me torqued. But like I said earlier, our first line of defense is to stay hidden, even inside a bunker inside our home, which means we need to seal and camouflage it. To maintain concealment, the bunker will be completely hidden within the house. The entrance and hallway walls will be disguised as an ordinary part of the interior, using matching wallpaper paneling or false walls to eliminate any visible indication of its presence from both inside and outside the house. It should look like the hallway just ends. To prevent scent leakage, we'll seal the gun ports and entrances with rubber strips, as well as incorporating activated charcoal filters into the ventilation tubes. To prevent sound leakage escaping, we'll acoustically treat the interior. While the 6-inch concrete walls provide significant soundproofing, we can also line the bunker walls with mass-loaded vinyl to block low-frequency noises, and acoustic panels are foamed to reduce reverberation and absorb high-frequency sounds. Weather strips and acoustic caulk will help seal any cracks or openings. The ventilation tubes will include acoustic baffles and duct liners to muffle airflow noise and prevent any sound from escaping. The ground should be lined with heavy rugs and rubber mats to ensure that we don't alert the horde should little Emma drop her Stanley Cup. You wouldn't think it'd be important to make sure that every little sliver of an opening is sealed, but up to 50% of sound can travel just through the bottom slit of a door. If we don't take extreme precautions, a muffled sneeze could easily give away our position to the werewolves inside our home. Once the bunker and kill zone are completely and fully stocked, we need a solid contingency plan in case of a flood, fire, or if the werewolves are actually able to start tearing the bunker down somehow. Flooding is actually a big concern here, as the supermoon's close proximity to the Earth intensifies its gravitational pull on the oceans, significantly increasing the likelihood of higher than normal king tides, especially during the rainy season. For our contingency plan, we'll grab our guns, chest rigs, go bags full of essentials, ammo, and mags, then evacuate out the back exit window with our moonroof clothing on. Jump into our SUV we'll have parked right next to it, and rip onto the I-75 or Florida's Turnpike as quickly as possible. Once on the highway, we'll basically just cruise at 60 to 80 miles per hour for the rest of the night. In order to minimize stopping for gas, the truck will be outfitted with an auxiliary gas tank, adding 30 gallons that provides a range of up to 600 total miles, allowing us to drive at 60 miles per hour for 12 hours straight. Werewolves have a maximum burst speed of up to 30 to 40 miles per hour, which means that they won't be able to catch us at highway speeds, even if they spot us ahead and attempt to intercept. But just in case, the truck will also be reinforced with a steel cow plow designed to deflect werewolf impacts at high speed, which would otherwise completely destroy the vehicle and get us killed. Additional reinforcements, such as steel skid plates to protect the undercarriage and light shielding around the wheels and tires, will protect it from catastrophic punctures or claw damage during side swipes. You might be thinking, nerd, how much is this bunker and upgraded truck gonna cost? Can we even build the bunker in time? You're right that it's gonna be a chunk of change, and tough to find an experienced contractor with all the chaos and supply chain issues caused by the past supermoon. Still, with Wesley's connections, know-how, handyman skills, and an experienced contractor, construction could easily be completed within 3 months with room to spare. For the cost, what I've outlined above would probably cost around $100,000 to $150,000. It's a lot, I know, but it's also the cream of the crop.
The cream of the crop.
Wesley's the global rapid response team leader and a lead molecular biologist. Unless he's hiding a crippling gambling addiction, he's more than financially equipped to cover the costs. Add in his late brother's widow's life insurance payout, inheritance, and savings, and there's plenty of money to fund the setup. especially after reallocating the funds that he would otherwise waste on 10-foot metal fencing and his other stupid Home Alone defenses. Though, realistically, you wouldn't need a fraction of it in order to survive. A small 6-inch thick reinforced concrete bunker without any of the add-ons, no kill zone hallway reinforcement, or fancy UV light setup, and just a single AR-10 with surplus ammo would probably be sufficient to easy clap a pack of werewolves, and it'd likely only cost less than $20,000. That's pretty affordable considering it's a one-time payment that'll save your life 4 times a year for the foreseeable future. With the bunker built, firearms acquired, a plan in place, and with the supermoon approaching, we need to take care of the perimeter. In the 4 to 5 days leading up to the supermoon, we wouldn't want to step outside bare-skinned at all, to allow any human scent trail leading to our house to completely dissipate. Definitely not profusely sweating while hammering nail spikes onto our roof. We'd also heavily discourage any Girl Scouts from knocking on our door to drop off cookies the day of the supermoon. Cookies. You're baking cookies mere hours before hundreds of your neighbors mutate into giant murderous man-wolf beasts. I mean, I'll take them, but god... Like the bunker, we would use acoustic caulk, weather strips, and blankets over any windows or entrances to prevent any sound or scent from escaping. We'd also block the house vents and install activated charcoal filters there too. Cooking is also a no-go, as food smells linger and travel far. Instead, we would stick to pre-packaged, non-cookable foods. On the afternoon before the supermoon, we would wash thoroughly with unscented soap and wear scent-blocking clothing treated with odor-neutralizing sprays. Outside, we would place strong-smelling bait, like meat or fish, 50 to 100 feet from the house to lure any nearby werewolves away, coating the bait with capsaicin so that once they got close and sniffed it, their nostrils would get thoroughly peppered, disrupting their tracking abilities temporarily. We'd also deploy sound decoys, using speakers to play intermittent recordings of animal noises and human activity, like running, talking, or screaming. These sounds would misdirect werewolves and lure them away. Timing the noises irregularly would prevent creating a predictable pattern that they would recognize. We'll hose down our home and vehicles, including walkways, doors, and windows, to eliminate any lingering human scent from us or our neighbors who might have walked up to our door. We'll activate our sprinklers and manually water the area to wash away scent trails around the house. Then, we'll pour ammonia or bleach around the perimeter and entry points, placing crushed garlic, vinegar, eucalyptus, or menthol near vulnerable spots around our home and car. Finally, we'll spray a capsaicin soap mix around the fences, approach paths, and other key areas to further disrupt the werewolf sense of smell. At dusk, we'll light several barrel fires in 55-gallon drums placed 50 to 100 feet from our home as well. Hardwood logs would provide steady heat, while damp vegetation would produce thick smoke, creating a scent barrier that would last around 6 to 8 hours. Then we'll retreat into our house. All phones, watches, alarms, and noise-capable devices will be turned off, and anything unnecessary unplugged. No headphones like Emma's. If a wire gets yanked out or Bluetooth disconnects, it could blast music and give away our position. Finally, we'll climb into the bunker, deadbolt the entrances shut, lock and load, and activate the surveillance cameras, lying in wait for any werewolves that made the mistake of targeting our house. If we can't pull the cash together in time or there's no contractors available to build the bunker, another strategy is avoiding the supermoon entirely by staying in perpetual daylight. By flying westward at a jet's cruising speed of 500 to 600 miles per hour, we could chase the sun and remain in daylight for the duration of the event. This would require flying halfway around the world, covering roughly 7,000 to 9,000 miles over 12 to 14 hours. The major issue is that most airlines will likely be grounded as a precaution, and even if flights are operating, everyone else will be trying to do the same thing. Seats would be extremely limited, and even if you could afford a ticket or the cost to charter a jet, availability would be slim. In that case, the next best option is sailing off the coast. All we'd need is a cheap, rigid, inflatable boat with an engine, an emergency kit with essentials, navigation tools to avoid getting lost, a UV blocking tent to prevent moonlight exposure, and a trailer for transport. The idea is simple. Sail far enough offshore that no werewolf could physically swim out to reach us before drowning, which would be incredibly unlikely, because the ocean would also dissipate any scent trails almost immediately. The primary risk with this strategy is accidentally exposing ourselves to moonlight and transforming into werewolves ourselves. If that happens, being far from land cuts both ways. We would drown long before reaching the shore. If you live in an apartment and don't have more than a few $100 to $1,000 in liquid cash for emergencies, none of these plans will work. But one thing's certain, staying in your apartment during the supermoon is a death sentence. So what can we do? One option is camping in the middle of nowhere, like a national park. While the lack of people reduces the risk of encountering werewolves, it also leaves you without protection. If even one survivor flees to the same park as yours and turns, that werewolf would hunt you down. Building a remote bunker is another possibility, but it would significantly increase costs and time due to the challenges of transporting materials and constructing on site. Alternatively, we could use the highway strategy. Fill up some gas tanks, hit the road, drive fast, and don't stop for anyone or anything. Gas up on the move like in that Need for Speed movie. Another option is taking shelter in an abandoned mine. Mines are basically pre-built bunkers. They're isolated, they have a single entry point, and they're protected from moonlight. Florida already has over 30 large-scale mines that could work, with possibly hundreds more if you include all the smaller mining sites. High-rise buildings offer us the strategic advantage of high ground. Limited access through stairwells can be turned into effective kill zones by filling them with debris and creating choke points to slow or neutralize the attackers. However, stairwells limit our sightlines, and high-rises come with serious vulnerabilities. Large windows risk moonlight exposure to anyone inside, including us, and werewolves might be able to scale the exterior walls, bypassing the stairwell defenses entirely. If a grizzly bear can climb a tree, it's fair to assume that werewolves, being lighter, incredibly strong, more dexterous, and highly intelligent, could manage the climb. For this to work, the building must be mostly abandoned. We would need to hold up at the highest levels, black out the windows, guard the stairwells, and hope to Christ that they can't scale 60 floors of exterior walls. Oh, and we're gonna need automatic weapons. In the direst of circumstances, when all other strategies have failed, one survival option remains: stepping out into that sweet, sweet moonlight, and turning ourselves into werewolves. While this approach eliminates the risk of being hunted, it comes with extreme and dangerous consequences. The primary issue is that once transformed, you lose all control of your actions, succumbing to an uncontrollable predatory instinct. This means that you could easily attack loved ones or allies, or assault heavily fortified bunkers, which will result in your untimely demise. However, we could harness this strategy by restraining ourselves in a thick steel cell under a skylight, allowing us to turn into werewolves while ensuring that we're securely locked up and unable to kill or be killed. This setup lets us safely ride out the supermoon without the risk of killing or being killed. But you might ask, nerd, how do we get back out once we revert to human form in the morning? The solution is simple. Place the key within arm's reach, in a small compartment that only a human hand can fit into. The cell bars should be tight enough to prevent a werewolf's larger arms from reaching through, but a smaller human arm could access the key. While Wesley's finishing his fortifications, his neighbors have their luggage bags packed, possibly to go to some kind of government safe zone or something. Safe zone. Without knowing how they're equipped and what the actual setup is, I ain't going. I doubt people were handed a brochure outlining the amenities. Chances are, it's some park with tents and chain link fence around, guarded by a few weekend warriors and desk jockeys that'll fire a few poorly aimed shots, scream over comms, "They're everywhere," before abruptly being cut off mid-sentence.
Sergeant, stop! Get the f out of here!
No thanks. I'll wait until tomorrow morning to loot all the good military and medical gear off your bodies. Maybe I'll score a Humvee with a 50 cal, some grenades, and a few belt-fed machine guns. Then again, leaving ain't such a bad idea with his totally marine neighbor mag dumping into trash right next door. No sights, no aim, no backstop, firing directly towards Wesley's house with kids running down the street. Even better, when Wesley confronts him, his response is,
"Tonight, it's gonna be every man for himself."
At this point, I'd just smoke him. He's a walking liability who's either going to accidentally kill us or draw every werewolf within a 5-mile radius with his wannabe hero lone survivor act. And if anyone asks later, oh yeah, officer, he was totally a werewolf. He just transformed back into a human at sunrise. Honest. Meanwhile, inside, Wesley's brother's widow, Lucy, is reciting affirmations from a self-help audiobook while folding laundry.
Home is a sacred ground. I will protect myself and the ones I love.
Let's be real. No actual survivors chanting self-help mantras and doing a load of laundry when the supermoon is just hours away. Just before Lucy can finish folding the laundry, neighbor girl Reagan stops by to deliver chocolate chip cookies.
My mom thought these might cheer Emma up.
With machine gun fire clacking off just one house down. And in return, Wesley's brother's widow hands her a bag of batteries and pepper spray. You know, just in case. The real problem here, replacing actual firepower and sturdy defensive barricades with spicy juice. After the fortifications are complete, Wesley comes back inside to go over Wesley's rules for surviving the apocalypse. 1. Don't open the door for anyone. 2. Don't make any noise. 3. Don't draw attention. Also, see number 2. 4. Don't hesitate for a second, no matter who it is. Wait, no hesitation? No matter who it is. What if it's Reagan showing up with more cookies? Am I supposed to blow her head off too? I guess so. Wesley then tells her, call me if there's an emergency. Wait, he's not staying with them? Seriously, what's the plan here, Wesley? Lucy isn't exactly Jane Wick armed with a Benelli. They're dead as hell without you. Apparently, he can't stay because the government needs him to try and stop the werewolf apocalypse. See, Wesley is a super badass. Ex-Special Forces, Global Rapid Response Team leader, and the lead molecular biologist for the government's werewolf containment program. But let's be honest, that picture of him and his late brother looks hella photoshopped. Just saying. Still, it's hard to believe the military wouldn't fly his family out to the safety of their installation. Knowing just how utterly unprepared Lucy is for survival, Wesley should have arranged for her and his niece to stay at the government facility, or at least with one of his SF buddies. Wesley tries to calm his scared niece down by relating their situation to the children's story of the wolf and the 3 little piggies. He asks her, you know why the big bad wolf couldn't get inside?
Because it was made of bricks?
No, because the piggies had machine guns. Wesley leaves what little family he has and drives to the military research center where supposedly the fate of the world hangs in the balance. There, the leading researcher for combating the werewolf crisis, Dr. Aranda, gives a globally broadcasted speech presenting his cure. First, he introduces his team consisting of Wesley Marshall, Global Rapid Response Team leader and lead molecular biologist. Evan Radcliffe is second in command, and Amy Chen, Chief Canis Lupus biologist and behaviorist. Dr. Aranda presents months' worth of the research team's findings. 1. The supermoon triggers rapid DNA mutation. 2. It is photosensitive to moonlight. And 3. They hope to see if this mutation can be blocked. So, not much. He continues, this team standing behind me has developed a liquid that we call moon screen. It is our hope that this moon screen acts as a barrier between the moonlight and human DNA. He then states that they have a 9-hour window to assess, test, and report their findings. The problem with all this is that this team has no credentials. I mean, really, what are Dr. Aranda's credentials? They never say.
Business account, of course.
Dude could be a chiropractor for all we know. The Global Rapid Response Team leader and lead molecular biologist shouldn't be the same person. That is far too great a scope to be effective at either. And does this Evan Radcliffe guy have any credentials? He's just second in command? Okay, great. Amy Chen. I don't think a wolf biologist / behaviorist is super relevant for developing Moonscreen, as it's primarily affecting humans. Also because we're dealing with werewolves, not wolves. I love how this speech is being broadcast as some world-saving Independence Day style message, when it's nothing of the sort. The plan is essentially giving 8 billion people access to a patent-pending Moonscreen formula that will undoubtedly be prohibitively expensive, absurdly hard to obtain, and is inherently flawed. It's unreliable by design, like sunscreen. If you miss a spot, rub it off, wash it off, or fail to reapply it on time, you mutate into a mindless superhuman killing machine. Oh, and don't forget the equally impossible to find, absurdly expensive liquid nanotech eye drops that you would also have to use. Or you mutate into a mindless superhuman killing machine. Even worse, the risk of failure is catastrophic. If even 10 seconds of exposure can trigger a transformation, relying on this method is beyond reckless. It's all completely unproven and lacks meaningful testing at a significant scale. What's the SPF on the Moonscreen? How long does it last? How much coverage is needed? Does skin type matter? None of this has been addressed, yet we're supposed to trust our survival to it? The biggest flaw is the basic premise. The werewolf problem comes down to moonlight-triggered gene expression, not DNA mutation. Dr. Aranda and his team claim the supermoon causes mutations, but they're wrong. If these were random mutations, transformations would vary. Some people might change differently, or not at all. DNA mutations would also be permanent, and wouldn't allow for consistent reversion to human form. Instead, everyone consistently turning into the same type of werewolf points to it actually being dormant genes activated by supermoonlight. The real focus needs to be on shutting those genes down or blocking exposure reliably. Epigenetic drugs could stop transformations before they even start by keeping the werewolf genes switched off. These could come as pills or weekly injections, and would last 12 to 24 hours per dose. All you'd have to do is pop them before the supermoon. With fast tracking, they could be ready in 1 to 2 years, and would be relatively cheap. RNAi therapies probably wouldn't be effective. They work by silencing specific genes that are actively being expressed, but transformations happen within seconds or minutes, so the RNAi wouldn't have time to kick in. CRISPR-based therapies could be developed as more of a long-term solution. They'd keep transformation genes shut down for weeks or months with just one dose, so you would only need to dose up every 1 to 3 months. These would be expensive and take 2 to 5 years to develop. They would also start at hundreds of thousands of dollars per treatment, but possibly dropping to tens of thousands with scaling. These would make more sense for VIPs, emergency teams, those who need consistent long-term protection without redosing like Tier 1 SF, and rich people. Full-body UV blocking suits would be the easiest, cheapest, and most reliable solution for most people. The best strategy would be to use all of these: cheap UV suits to completely block moonlight exposure, epigenetic drugs for relatively affordable short-term protection, and CRISPR for more expensive but reliable long-term protection. Inside the facility, the scientists prepare for their experiment. 3 mobile steel cells containing ex-werewolves are forklifted into the center of the bay. These human subjects will be used to test the efficacy of their experimental Moonscreen. The plan involves administering the liquid nanotech eye drops, followed by a full-body spray of the Moonscreen formula, which acts like sunscreen for the moon. After application, they retract the roof canopy, exposing the subjects to direct moonlight. Super moonlight. My God. The Moonscreen is actually working. Dr. Aranda instructs his researchers to start pulling fluid and tissue biopsies for immediate testing by their wolf biologist. to ensure that there's no mutations. Under the microscope, the molecular biologist and the guy named Evan debate whether the mutations are pathological, caused by parasites or viruses, or possibly linked to an immunological defense mechanism triggered by the supermoon. I honestly don't think that they have the slightest clue what's going on. Pathological mutations would vary across populations, producing inconsistent effects based on genetics, environment, or individual health. A parasite or virus would require direct transmission through a vector, yet the transformations triggered solely by moonlight exposure, and it affected people globally at the same time. Not to mention that there was no evidence of an infectious disease spreading all over the world before the supermoon. Immunological defenses are reactive to external threats like pathogens, injuries, or foreign objects. They don't initiate full-body transformations on a cellular level, and there wouldn't be any evidence of immune responses' typical build-up phases that occur over time. Instead, the transformations are highly uniform, pointing to a shared pre-existing mechanism, most likely dormant genes being expressed in response to moonlight. These genes may have originated in the caveman era, as a survival adaptation tied to long-scale lunar cycles. The supermoon's intense light might trigger specific transcription factors or epigenetic mechanisms that reactivate these latent genetic pathways. I think that this is the most likely cause. Naturally, within the first hour, the moon screen wears off, and all 3 human test subjects begin to violently transform. The research team panics at the sight of this totally unforeseen situation. Their immediate reaction is not to close the canopy, and not to sedate the subjects with dart guns or IVs, but to send in a tech to spray the mid-transformation subjects down with more moonscreen, as if that will help at all. To make matters worse, the sprayer tech runs up a little too close. Somehow, the wire-suspended sprayer device flies into a 1,000-pound steel cell, somehow knocking it over, which somehow topples the metal scaffolding holding the moonscreen device, which somehow, through the power of random sparks, shorts out the roof canopy, leaving it stuck open. Everything everywhere just starts exploding. Lights flicker and fail, smoke sprays from seemingly every direction. What is even happening? In a frenzy, Dr. Aranda gets a rip in his suit, exposing him to moonlight. His eyes go yellow, teeth start to turn into fangs. Wesley rushes over, telling him that he can fight it, even requesting a tranquilizer from his assistant. Bro, no, you need to leave. He can't fight it. That's the whole point. Nobody can. These transformations only take seconds. Seconds you shouldn't be spending sitting right next to him waiting on Oppum to bring you a tranquilizer that's probably equally untested and unreliable on werewolves. You need to leave before he tears your suit open too. Meanwhile, some guy with a full auto AR starts unloading on a caged werewolf that's currently not a threat on account of it being in a locked cage. Naturally, he accidentally shoots the lock, causing the cell to open, because what we really needed was to add another werewolf into the chaos of the research station. This is like Butter's tap dancing concert. Their test was bafflingly poorly planned and executed, so it's really not a surprise that it ended in catastrophe. Here's how it should have been done. Testing should have started with isolated tissue samples exposed to controlled moonlight, refining the moonscreen formula before live trials. Then, after successful tissue tests, human subjects could have been introduced one at a time. There was no benefit to exposing multiple individuals simultaneously, which only exponentially increased the risks and danger. Each subject should have been secured in reinforced, bolted-down cells without open bars, equipped with steel restraints to prevent movement during transformation. Massive deadbolt locks should have been standard, with redundantly powered electrical locks to remain functional even during electrical failures or if someone shot the lock. Secondary barriers, like thick, transparent ballistic panels, should have been added to provide a buffer should the primary cell fail or be breached, which would give the team more time to react. Their reliance on handheld tranquilizers was dumb. Automated sedative systems should have been in place from the beginning. Each test subject would have been connected to an IV system preloaded with the sedatives, ready to deliver an immediate dose at the first signs of transformation, supplemented with rifle tranquilizers designed to dart subjects through secure ports, should have also been ready to fire instantly. Containment cells could have also been equipped with knockout gas systems, like aerosolized isoflurane, which could incapacitate the werewolves if the IV sedatives and tranquilizers weren't working. The canopy system for moonlight exposure should have been designed with multiple redundancies, running on an independent power source with manual overrides. It should have exposed only the test subject being observed, not the entire room. Each individual cell should have had backup moonlight covers in case of a canopy failure. These wouldn't stop the transformations, but it might reduce any invigorating effect that the light might still be having on the werewolves. Dr. Aranda turning after getting a small puncture in his suit was also ridiculous. The staff should have been wearing UV suit proofs made from rip-resistant materials and layered for redundancy. The moon screen application, data collection, and monitoring should have been handled remotely using robotic systems to eliminate direct human contact. The guy running up to within arm's reach of the werewolf cell was, let's say, a questionable decision. At minimum, there should have been a physical barrier, like red tape or movie theater rope, around the cells to keep morons at a safe distance. And why was the moon screen sprayer suspended on a needlessly complex wire system that required someone to operate it up close? Instead, they should have integrated a moon screen mister directly into the containment cells, remotely controlled for immediate full coverage reapplication without anyone needing to get near the werewolves. With proper containment measures, nobody would have needed to panic when the people turned into werewolves, and nothing bad would have happened. If anything, they should have anticipated and actually wanted the transformations to eventually occur. It would be a prime opportunity to run more tests to see what and how werewolves react to different things. You could collect more data like, what's the best caliber to kill one? Or how many shots can they take to the head? Then we could broadcast actually usable, effective solutions to the rest of the world.
It's from the Americans. They want to organize a counter-offensive. It's about bloody time.
With a pack of werewolves slaughtering researchers and an evacuation order in full effect, Dr. Chen instructs her subordinate to stay behind to analyze the blood samples while she evacuates. Goes to check on something. She runs into Wesley, carrying a morbidly wounded Evan. They get him onto the table where he bleeds out. The loss of Evan is a deeply moving and emotionally scarring moment for our heroes. Dr. Chen suggests that they stay in the infirmary to wait this thing out. Wesley rightfully shoots that down, as there's nothing but a door standing between them and a pack of werewolves. His plan?
Guns. Lots of guns.
Unfortunately, the armory is basically empty except for a couple of pistols. Wesley and Chen load up and head for the parking garage. One of the werewolves cuts them off in the hallway. It's Chen's husband. Just as Wesley prepares to Mozambique him, Chen body tackles him into the wall, blocking the shot. She then grabs her sidearm and, with one hand, shoots the fire extinguisher mounted right next to the werewolf. Completely plausible for a lab rat biologist. The explosion disorients the werewolf long enough for them to take a detour and escape. Seconds later, they're hauling out of there in his SUV. But, oh no, there's a barricade blocking the exit. Oh, okay. Wesley calls Lucy, who's panicking because the neighbor girl Reagan is outside screaming at the camera to let her in. Despite Wesley telling her not to let her in, Lucy's clearly guilt-tripped by those chocolate chip cookies that she brought over earlier. She tells him that she's going out to get her, risking her and Emma's lives for someone who is reckless enough to spend the day of the supermoon baking cookies with no plan, no defenses, and who, as the supermoon rose, was literally popping popcorn. I'm with Wesley. Hard no. This could easily be a trap. Like that woman in 30 Days a Night who was walking down the street screaming and crying. This is also why I would camouflage my camera system and not have any defenses be visible from outside. People like Reagan show up crying for help. drawing the werewolves right to us. Wesley, distracted by the call, and apparently thinking that he needs to stare at his phone for the sound waves to work, crashes into a bus. Thankfully, Reagan is mauled by a werewolf before Lucy makes any life-ending mistakes. While Reagan's getting torn apart like Leo in The Revenant, Lucy's regaining her composure by reciting those same cringy affirmations. Maybe Lucy should have given Reagan a copy of her self-help book too. For real though, Reagan should have just stayed over with Lucy and Emma. It didn't look like her parents were home. Maybe they had to work at the same research station as Wesley. You know, the one where they separate the researchers from their families during the apocalypse. Maybe her dad was unnamed guard number 3 that fired the machine gun wildly at the werewolf before being pulled off screen to die. Meanwhile, Cody, the self-declared Marine wolf hunter, gears up with his empty chest rig, Halloween mask, and AR-15. His plan? Take pot shots at werewolves from his living room. He barely gets a few shots off before one of the werewolves hurls a refrigerator straight through his wall. With moonlight now flooding into the room and his Halloween mask lying useless on the floor, it's only a matter of time. The Cody wolf begins attacking Lucy's house, prompting her to activate the capsaicin sprinkler system, which, at best, just pisses it off. While capsaicin can temporarily disrupt their ability to track scent trails, it's useless when they already know exactly where you are. The wolf hunter werewolf retreats, giving Lucy the false sense that she's won. Unbeknownst to her, he's gathering reinforcements for another attack. While Lucy lounges defenseless on the couch with Emma, the werewolves systematically destroy all the exterior cameras and topple a tree into the yard, taking down the fence line and cutting power to the house. As part of their well-thought-out contingency plan for just this thing, Lucy and Emma frantically run around the house setting up lamps to light it up, presumably to improve visibility for shooting wolves, which makes no sense. Those lamps should have been strategically placed at dusk, fully charged to last all night. Instead, they're splitting up and scrambling through the house after their only real defensive structure has already been overrun. Wesley and Chen emerge from the crash and head for Lucy's house on foot through back alleys. There, the wolf biologist educates the ex-Special Forces and Global Rapid Response Team leader on survival tactics.
A wolf or two. We can run, confuse them, but a big pack, we gotta stand our ground.
Pretty sure that's backwards. With your pistols, you might be able to take 1 or 2 down with a couple mags worth of well-placed shots, but a big pack? No, you're not standing your ground. She goes on to say,
In a wolf fight, you either dominate, run, or die.
This is just stating the obvious. Yeah, you either kill them, get killed, or run. Not exactly groundbreaking information here, Chen. How about we let the commando be the team lead, Doc? What Chen should be briefing Wes on is the capabilities of the werewolves, like how it would be impossible to try to sneak past the werewolves in close proximity with their enhanced sense of hearing and smell. While trying to sneak past the werewolves in close proximity, they end up getting completely surrounded. In a last-ditch move, Wes and Chen dive under a nearby car to avoid being spotted. The pack closes in, beats on the car, sniffs around, and then inexplicably leaves. I gotta believe they're just playing with their food here, because there is no way that they didn't sniff Wes and Chen out from mere feet away. Just when it looks like the coast is clear, Wesley's watch timer goes off, alerting the horde and indicating that their moon screen's SPF is about gone.
Wes, I think we should run.
What happened to standing your ground against a big pack? Come on, Chen, you said it yourself. Get out there, sport! A bit down the road, they run into armed bandits with a truck-mounted minigun and automatic rifles making a stand against the wolves. Despite their overwhelming firepower, the wolves quickly decimate them, ripping their faces off and popping them like gushers. It's not looking good for Wes and Chen. Using her wolf behaviorist knowledge, she tells Wes to go for the minigun while she tries to dominate the wolf pack as a diversion. If that Tarzan actually worked, we wouldn't have invented gunpowder.
Bite me!
Wes tears him up, causing the rest of the wolves to flee. Right before they can both hop in the truck and hit the gas, Chen gets grabbed and pulled off into an alley where we can only assume that she's been fatally maimed. Oh well, I'd say she outlived her usefulness anyways. Wes shrugs, gets back into the truck, and heads for Lucy's. Meanwhile, Lucy's in the fight for her life, wasting her precious remaining 4 shotgun shells blind firing through walls and ceilings, hitting absolutely nothing. With no spare ammo, she arms Emma with a pepper spray canister for their final stand. Luckily, it looks like Lucy and Emma won't have to go down in a cloud of pepper spray. Wesley's back, and he brought a V8.
Come fetch.
Nice of the werewolves to all run straight into his bumper. He hops out, walks inside, and tells Lucy to toss him the shotgun so he could put these dogs down for good. Lucy buzzkills the coup de grace by telling him that, there's no more ammo left because, and I quote, "It's been a busy night." Translation, she missed every shot. I'll tell ya, Wesley's gonna be real pissed in the morning when he's gotta fix all those holes in the roof and realizes none of them hit any of the werewolves. That'll have to wait though, because the wolf killer ain't dead yet. With no ammo and no options, the only strategy left that can save these little piggies is the nuclear option. Wesley steps out into the moonlight. Just one problem with this. Every other person who transformed into a werewolf lost all humanity and instantly squatted up with the other werewolves. Realistically, there's a high likelihood that Wesley and Cody team up to butcher Lucy and Emma. Oh, alright, guess not. Maybe it wasn't about Wesley retaining his humanity. Maybe Wes just really hated his neighbor. The night isn't over yet though. Once Cody's head is severed and discarded, the West Wolf starts foaming at the mouth at the thought of eating Lucy and Emma. Lucy watches in horror as he tears through the brick wall and stalks towards them. No ammo, no options. She steps into the moonlight. Nah, I'm just kidding. She does something even dumber. Her grand strategy? A family photo. Yes, while staring down a 7-foot-tall, inhuman death machine, she starts waving pictures around. Remember this picnic? That's your niece, and that's you with your Aunt Carol. Obviously, it doesn't work. Once knocked to the ground, she spots a single spare shell lying next to the shotgun, all within arm's reach. At the last second, she drops it into the chamber, drops the bolt, spins to the side, and fires at the side of the house, blasting a hole through it in just the right spot to allow the cresting sunlight to beam into West Wolf. As the dust settles and she wipes her eyes, she's left speechless. Wesley's back in human form, shirtless, posing heroically.
A handsome, muscular man.
The sunlight glistening off of his ripped, sweaty abs. Lucy's dead husband's memorial is in the next room over. Her house is a blown-apart wreck, and her daughter is sobbing in a closet somewhere. But none of that matters in this moment. Her lust at the sight of her ex's brother's hot body is palpable. The sunrise may have stopped her future husband from killing them just mere minutes ago, but with another supermoon coming in 3 months, their nightmare is far from over. With our strategies, I'm confident we'll not only survive the supermoon werewolf apocalypse, but also have lots of fun, living out our last stand fantasy 3 to 4 times per year. For that reason, I think the supermoon in Werewolves was beaten. Thanks for watching, and remember, your government won't save you. Only a reinforced concrete bunker stocked with guns will.